The exploratory and never innovative work of Lawrence Carbon-Sequestering Brooks, FAIA and FAIA has elevated design and practice and has created architectural and legislative solutions for the most pressing societal challenges. They are the recipients of the 2024 AIA Distinguished Practice Award, given in recognition of a career or dedicated commitment to the built environment. They are also the recipients of the 2024 ACSA Gold Medal and the 2024 American Historic Gold Medal, the Institute's highest award. Okay, here's a separate. That's big. They have been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Time Magazine, and the Oprah Winfrey Show. The firm Brace of Scarborough has received 6 National AI Co Top 10 Green Building Awards, more than any other firm in the USA. Wow. Brooks of Scarborough are the recipient of multiple international awards, including 32 AIA Honor Awards, the Smithsonian Cooper Ewan National Design Museum Award in Architecture, and the AIA National Firm Award. They're also the recipients of the Lifetime Achievement Awards from the Interior Design Magazine and the AIA California Council. So here we are as you to the video in little tiny San Luis Obispo. At Building a Better Spoke could not be happier than to present to you very first Angie Scar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Full disclosure, we're a husband and wife team. And now we have our son who works with us. He just graduated. He's been working with us since he's been 12, doing various things. You know, when he got the college applications, we were like, well, what do you think you want to do? And, he was like, Dad, I don't know what I want to do, but I can tell you this, I'm not going to be an architect. And then when he started doing his applications, like under his breath, like, I think I'm going to apply for architect, almost fell over. So we're kind of a family, but we're, 30 people. We have office in Los Angeles and Florida.
And our son works with us now.
Yeah. I like to say I'm the partner in charge of reaping the benefits, which has some truth to it. And I see that mic.
Oh, yeah.
I want the mic.
It is nearly 100% independent from the power grid. It was built by an architect who specializes.
A new building that is energy conscious is now going up in Santa Monica, and it's getting a lot of attention. Channel 4's Patrick Healy is there.
At first, it appears to be any new apartment project, just another building noisily being put up on a Santa Monica corner lot. But Colorado Court is in the
One of Leo's personal passions is finding out ways to provide environmentally safe housing to low-income families. Take a look.
We're standing here at the first green affordable housing project in the country. This is Larry Scarpa, the architect. Why don't you
Yeah. That was 2002. That was the first LEED certified building in the country. We had no idea what we were doing, but we had a vision. We thought, buildings ought to be more sustainable. And who needs that the most? It's the people who, are the poorest in our society. He spend the most on utilities and housing costs. So we were doing what my mother would describe as Jewish common sense. But little did I know, the kind of press we would get from doing that. This project won every award on the planet. And it was very simple. The Anti-Lights describe it's an alphabet building, but it's based on a lot of buildings. It's based on, old buildings that were built this way. Before air conditioning, we built smartly. And that's what this building does. It just makes sense. But when we finished it, as many accolades as we got for the building, there was a certain emptiness within us. And, this is downtown Santa Monica, prime, most expensive real estate on the planet. And the best we could do was get our client to put a community room in the building. And, when we thought about it, it's like, is our building actually any better than those, contributing back to the community? That should be vibrant retail in there. And when we figured it out, there were so many obstacles to prevent our client from actually doing that we said, we need to do something about it. So we started to meet the first Saturday of every month in our office with some bankers, planners, economists, designers, landscape people to discuss this whole idea about making better affordable housing, making affordable housing projects better contributors to their community. And we did all kinds of crazy things. I teach too at USC, but I've taught in a lot of places. We did studios. We did all kinds of different ideas. The sketch up here on the left was done by Roger Sherman. And we were talking about densifying a single family lot for ADUs. And when we went to the planners and our council people, they said we would never support that. That's political suicide. Well, guess what? Today, 30 years later, that's the hot thing. But we had this idea to provide better opportunities to, what we call the working poor. It's not people who are desperate on the street, but there's so many of us, like teachers, firefighters, nurses, hotel workers, teachers that can't afford to live near where they work. And so many communities are getting unaffordable that we said we really want to do something. So after meeting for more than a year, we started to write some grants about this idea that we had to make or to help make cities better by using affordable housing as a vehicle to do that. And overnight, we got like millions of dollars in grant money. I was shocked at how many people were interested. So you're hanging this nonprofit called Livable Places. And our idea was that we would show people what you could do through development, but we wanted to have policy too, to make change. And so we thought that we would do development and our developer fees would support our policy, but it turned out to be just the opposite. We bought this building north of downtown LA. This is the old warehouse building for Fuller Paints, and we converted it into housing, mixed-use housing. It took 37 variances and 3.5 years to get this approved.
And part of that reason is because Lincoln Heights was zoned industrial, where it was illegal to build housing. And so part of Livable Places was showing people how you had to change policy to be able to build housing in these neighborhoods.
But the interesting thing about this now is we did something that is a hot topic again today. Like, this is a warehouse building, but it's a big volume, lots of columns, not a lot of perimeter. Like, how do you convert these kind of buildings to housing? And what we did was we took, that's what it looked like. It's a beautiful building like this one, but full of columns and hard to get light in. So we cut the hole right in the middle and turned it into that kind of courtyard. And there's 105 units in there now. So there it is, cutting the hole. And we had 2 floors on top. Those were the market rate units. And there is, we were the first building in this neighborhood to revitalize it. It's called Lincoln Heights. And as soon as we did this, developers came in right behind us, right? So we thought we would revamp the whole neighborhood, but we were suddenly priced out of our own game. Like, we had access to cash through our organization, but we needed long escrows, and developers were then coming in and just buying everything cash. So we had mixed feelings, but the neighborhood completely changed.
And we didn't just pick this neighborhood just because. This is a neighborhood where it was illegal to build housing, but there were schools, parks, the Gold Line ran through it. You know, everything was primed and ready for people to live there.
So this is what's happening now. This is right across the street. You can see our building, Patrick Todd building, is now complete. It's a mixed-use housing project, cafe, everything in there. And right across the street, this is the old LA jail. The city approved a $1 billion project to redo the jail. So the neighborhood is transforming. It's going to become a vibrant neighborhood that once was derelict and decrepit. And it only took this one little seed that we planted there. But it, you know, I like to say it's a bit like, you know, wildebeest crossing the river. And all sit at the edge until one person or one goes, then everyone follows. So you have to take a little bit of risk. And what I like to say, it's not the end of the world. If you fail, if you make a mistake, okay, so you try, you know, and in this case, we had success, but we also had failures. So this is the units in that building, and as part of our group, we had discussions like how to keep it affordable, you know, how to keep it, and these were very affordable units to start, but this is from several years ago. This clip in there, these units are now going for almost $1 million. So it's kind of crazy, and, you know, have we thought about it differently? We were saying, well, why can't people who are disadvantaged or don't have money make a profit like everyone else? And, you know, they did. They sold their units. But now the building's not affordable. And there are better vehicles now that we learned from that as well.
Land trusts. Land trusts.
We did other things. If you ask any architect in LA what the small lot ordinance is, they all know it. They all use it. And so from a policy perspective, we started making comments, or we basically started badgering the city of LA. Any of you heard of Ciclavia before? Anyone? There's a Ciclavia person? Okay, well, Angie met the...
I met the, well, one of the things we did at Livable Places was to look at the bike paths in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is so big that communities had their own bike paths and none of them were connected. So we did some neighborhood workshops to connect the bike paths. And then over time, you know, we didn't follow up with that. And then I met the man who started Ciclavia, and he said, well, the reason why I started Ciclavia was because I was in your workshops and you were telling us about the bike paths in LA and they weren't connected. And so this whole organization, you know, planting a seed for others to take, I think, is something that we feel is very important that all of us can do.
It's amazing what you can accomplish when you get other people to do your work. And that's kind of what we've done in a way. So anyways, the small lot ordinance, we would, you know, go to the city and tell them their policy's not working. And, you know, we would show them, especially with regards to housing and transit, they were promoting transit along, or housing along transit corridors. And we showed that they had zero housing being built on their transit corridors. And they said, that's not true. And we said, well, the information's coming from your department. And they're like, really? So, you know, we showed them, and then they started, every time they'd want to have some amendments to their codes, they would send it to us for comment. So we just started writing our own. So we wrote what's called the small lot ordinance, and every architect in LA uses it. It basically brought back the mom and pop developers in LA. We do it too, you know, but the funny part is we'll go in with our own projects and under this ordinance, and the planner will tell us, no, that's not the intent of the ordinance. You know, we're like, really?
But these are just some of the buildings that was built under the ordinance. I'm just going to flash through some of these. Lorcan Burley's, this is Mark Rios, Barbara Vester.
There's even a website now that tracks all the development under the small lot ordinance in LA. What happens is once you start doing this, and we always thought that once you change policy, it's like forever. And what we found is actually policy is maybe even more temporal in a building. So, people started to ask you, what is the small lot ordinance? And then, they start changing. And it's really kind of changed the whole idea of what we started. Even though it still exists, it's become more difficult. It's less by right.
Less affordable.
Less
affordable. I mean, we were trying to make single family living more affordable. So like brownstones in Boston, rather than one house on a lot. And what we were accused of is gentrifying the neighborhood. So we have to have a vehicle to maintain affordability, but we also have to make better neighborhoods.
So this is stuff Angie and I did, this nonprofit. We co-founded. This is what I like to call our night job. We work in a bit of what I would say is a parallel universe. So we have a pretty conventional practice, but we have other things going along that affect our practice. And we always find this comes back to us. And I never thought about this, but a friend of ours, Steve Lavoni, who runs the Arkansas Community Design Center, he said, you guys are the only architects that I know when the rules don't work for you, you just go change the rules. And I never thought of it that way, but in some extent it's true. But when you change them for everyone. And I think you just do it by example. So this organization, Angie was the board president. We had staff. We basically got ourselves out. It was an organization running all by itself, but we couldn't stay away. So we founded another nonprofit called the Affordable Housing Design Leadership Institute. So we wanted to basically show that affordable housing makes communities better and stronger. And we wrote a grant. The idea is that we would do an institute roughly modeled after the Mayor's Institute on City Design, bring in a group of professionals, not just architects, landscape, same thing, policymakers, economists, bankers. And we invited about 8 people. We paid for everything. We brought them in. The first one we did was in 2010 in Minneapolis. And we asked them to bring a problem to us. And our group, which we call the resource group, helped them with their project and make their projects better. This was a one-time event that is now in its 17th year or something like that. Again, I never thought it would happen. It's now run by Enterprise Community Partners. And, a lot of what we try to do is to show that design matters. And that's what we did. Like the typical person thinks that this is how things get done. There's the design key, there's the developer, and the thing just happens. But in reality, it looks like that. And what happens is about 70% of the design decisions are made before even the designer touches it. And that's just not right. And so when we start to work on issue, one of the first things we did a Design Matters toolkit. And this was to educate the public on the importance of design, how design can actually make your community better,
We publish all of our institutes. This is free. You can go online. You can download all of this information at Enterprise. And, you know, I'm just showing you some pieces of it, but our whole idea was to show how these things will make neighborhoods better.
Oh, I think you have to go back to the video. Video.
Sorry.
Itang button. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
None of us at the end of a hard day at work say, I think I'm going to go to my housing unit after work. No one says that. People say, I'm going home. And hopefully the residents who have the opportunity to be in a home of their own, leaving a life of homelessness behind, hopefully they feel those same sorts of connections to what a home represents. People are always a little worried about an affordable housing building going in or a supportive housing building going in. And I think all too often, homeless folks who have passed through various systems probably reflect the worst in design. This is the local welfare office. This is the local mental health office. This is the local probation office. At best, pretty utilitarian. At worst, spaces that communicate a very negative message to the people who engage in those spaces. And we think that's a model that should be changed. Design can be used creatively as a solution to ending homelessness, no matter where it exists. So this is a rectangular shaped building on a rectangular shaped lot. Nothing terribly unusual about it. Pretty commonplace, actually, when you think about it. But I think it says you can do something really imaginative and creative in terms of crafting that solution, even on a plain old apartment building lot. Angie mentioned that the facade of this building is actually a space, which is the first time I heard her describe it that way, and I thought, that is really pretty interesting. The facade is actually a space. This is a great looking building on this block, even without homeless folks in it. The fact that homeless people live here, I think, once again, promotes a very positive depiction of what supportive housing can and should look like, in my opinion.
I used to sneak in McDonald's and stuff, like after the restroom, and go in there and take a bath. And my pride was really bad to just go and say I'm homeless. This building is marvelous. So I have family come visit. We have a community room. Like you want guests, your guests don't have to be inside your home. They can be inside the guest room, enjoy your company for a couple of hours, and send them on their merry way.
We created an aperture which was lifted up above the street so that it appears really open. There's a visual connection to the street, but not necessarily a physical connection.
You can come up on the roof and just relax your brains and get your thoughts out and make yourself better. This building right here will make you a better person.
And that was a short clip of a movie that won the AI Film Challenge grant that year. And my career started, I went to architecture school, and then I worked for a developer for 3 years, a nonprofit developer, because I felt like the education of an architect was one that really made cities better, made communities better, and I thought that's what architects did. So when I worked for the LA Community Design Center, the developer, Mike, our client here, was one of my coworkers, and he had just graduated from UCLA, and he then started the Skid Row Housing Trust. So if you follow your passion, it will come back to you eventually. So this is called the Six, and it's 52 units for homeless veterans, and it's in an area of very dense apartment buildings. And we wanted this building to appear very open, but it's very, very secure. So there are gates and fences. The courtyard, it's a typical courtyard building. Courtyard is lifted up above the ground floor, and the units wrap around the front. We have a little trick, which is a false wall on the front, so that it actually looks like a cube. But the courtyard provides it's the lungs of the building. It provides the social space for everyone here. The courtyard that's on the roof is really more of a Zen area. Courtyards are not just important for the passive design of a building, but also for their social aspect. And this courtyard is open to what is really the living room of the building. This is a recreation room with a kitchen. The art was donated by the Marciano Foundation. And Mike actually says that art that hangs in buildings actually helps people heal. And he only hires architects who can do buildings like this because he feels like that is actually what creates more well-being in the people who live in these buildings. So courtyards have been around for thousands of years. And like Larry said, we call them alphabet buildings. But again, they're not just great for the passive design of the building. It's also their social aspect. This is Horatio Court, Irving Gill, and another really beloved historic courtyard building in LA. And these buildings have remained because people love them and because people love to use them and live in them. But the codes today do not allow us to build housing like that. So in Venice, our nonprofit client could not be competitive with private developers and didn't have enough money to buy land for some housing that she wanted to build for TAY young adults, which are transitional age youth who are coming out of the foster care system. A lot of them become homeless in Los Angeles. So I met with her and I said, well, you can just redevelop the property you're on. So that's what they did. So this is another courtyard building. This is a U letter. On a very narrow lot. She moved out. Venice Community Housing moved out for a year and moved back after it was done. And we also like to do a lot of research, and we look at the neighborhoods within which we build. So the diagram on the left, you'll see a few of these, is really a study of the density of the neighborhood. And you can see in Venice, it's 12 units per acre, which is just a little bit better than suburbia. And our building is 106 units per acre. So density is really important because if you don't have density, you don't have walkability and you don't have livability. And I really believe that the well-being of people is really, the density really helps people be able to heal. And it's really a part of what makes cities work. So this is Rose Apartments, and Venice Community Housing is on the ground floor. We had to go through about 50 public meetings to get this building approved. The Venice Neighborhood Council unanimously rejected it, and the Planning Commission of LA unanimously approved it. So when people ask, why does it cost so much money to build affordable housing and why does it take so long? We sort of look around and we're like, well, it's definitely not us and it's definitely not the developers of these projects. But after it's been built, people have come up to me because we live in this neighborhood, our neighbors know that we built it. They come up to us and they say, well, I was really afraid that this building was going to be too big, and it's actually really beautiful. One of the things that we like to do with these courtyards is make them less defensive. We want the buildings to look open and not defensive. So a stepped planter at the edge of the courtyard allows us to remove the guardrail that's usually there that looks really defensive. The gates that people go through, it's a fully secure building, are recessed in on the side yard so that you can't really see them. And the building is essentially a simple, everything that we really do that you're going to see tonight are simple boxes that stack that are stucco or some other material that we try to use in a different way So this is a scalloped wall with glitter. And you can sort of see that it actually glitters at the right time of the day. When fire trucks drive by, it turns pink. But there's a
Yeah, when this was the contractor price, the original price we got was $125,000. And we just let our project architects deal with it. And, you know, we worked on the contractor, we worked on things, the price came down to closer to $100,000. And then the client was getting ready to abandon it. And so, you know, I'm like, it's glittered. You just throw it on there. It's like not that hard. So on a Saturday, I went in our shop. I got my phones. I set up my phone on video. I actually recorded myself doing the installation. And then I sent it to the contractor. Final price, $12,500.
We also reduced the area, Larry, of the.
And the thing too here, you know, it's like it's a coastal community, great views. It's, you know, it's gentrified. We've lived here since 1988. And see, you know, you could build these projects every day when we first moved here. And, you know, basically takes an act of Congress to build this now. But we did little things like this. This is the circulation up on the 4th floor. It's a little lookout, and they get 270 views. They can see the ocean. They don't get it from their unit, but they walk out on the balconies, and they have great views like everyone else.
And we also know that when you're connected to green space, when you can see it, you feel closer to it. So green space is on every level. Miami Beach, Florida has not built affordable housing in 40 years. So we're doing 2 new buildings in a neighborhood there of early modern architecture, 1960s apartments. This is senior affordable housing. One building faces a golf course and the other one faces a waterway, and they both have courtyards. But Florida is impacted by, thank you, Larry. Florida is impacted by sea level rise. And so we have to put the ground floor above the floodplain. So the challenge for us was really how to design a courtyard building that wants to really be connected to the street, but also having to raise it 7 feet. So our solution was really to use the planting and have soft infrastructure really step up kind of from the street to the 1st floor. And then the courtyard is then raised up another floor. And the trees literally climb up the building. So the building itself, you know, becomes this infrastructure. The courtyard is physically separate from the street, but visually connected. And we topped out the construction last week. So we should be done with these 2 buildings this year. And this courtyard building represents another kind of affordable housing, which is inclusionary housing, where you have both market rate and affordable housing in one project. This was a private developer in North Hollywood's art district called NoHo, where there are elements, there's amenities that contribute to a walkable neighborhood, but the density is not quite there yet. So there's a real need for an increase in density here. And this is a diagram of the density of the neighborhood, which is 20 units per acre, and our building is 90 units per acre. The developer, there are incentives in Los Angeles to allow a developer to build higher and denser if you provide a mixed-use building. So retail on the ground floor is at the corner, and the parking is screened so that it highlights the retail. He was able to build more because of that. Joseph Giovannini, an architecture critic, called this courtyard building a village within a village. And for us, it's, you know, a much bigger scale than the 6 and our other projects that we've showed. But the courtyard is really a stage for people. It's 5 stories, several different types of units, with a gym. This is really the living room for the building. And you know, the most sustainable building is the one that's already built. So these are 2 buildings that are existing on Skid Row, and Mike Alvidrez, our client for the 6, came to us and said he needed to increase accessibility, add an elevator to a building, and just do some maintenance. And he said, we're really sorry, you guys might not want it because you're design architects, but would you take the project? So of course we said, sure, we will. And both buildings were landlocked by other buildings with a lot of beds in them. Both were SROs, so they have common kitchens on the ground floor. But they had these really, really tiny spaces. And courtyards don't have to be big. They can be small. We turned the courtyard into this. So the courtyard was a place where you had trash, it was storage, the fire department had their access there, and we just simply cleaned it up. There are 60 homes in this building, and this is the only real social space that they have, and it's outside next to their commercial kitchen. The fire department still has access through this courtyard, and we had to work with them to, tell them that they're going to have to step over a planter and go through this fence that we built. But, the wood adds this nice warmth to the courtyard. The benches are designed to slide back and forth, and the bedrooms are actually covered by this screen, which is actually operable to allow them for emergency escape out of their bedrooms. So just, doing something like this tells people you care and gives them a sense of belonging and dignity. The other building had, this side yard, which was 8 feet by 60 feet. And they used it also for storage. People who lived here started throwing garbage into this side yard so much that the client then put up a net to keep the garbage from falling on people's heads. So then people threw more garbage out of their windows, and it started to get a net of garbage. We turned it into this. It doesn't take much to just clean up a space. We painted it. Every person who lives here has a plant on the wall. They can water it themselves. This is right off of the community kitchen that we fixed up, and everyone uses this space. It's very important to have this kind of a space in buildings like this. In Santa Monica, a courtyard is actually required in the zoning code for parcels over 99 feet wide. And we've worked in a lot of cities, and I think that's pretty unique. This site was a parking lot with an unused building on it that could not be saved. And it's directly across from Santa Monica College in a neighborhood that was destroyed economically when the 10 freeway came through. It's called Brunson Terrace after the family that lived there. And they were some of the first Black children born in Santa Monica who went on to become important entrepreneurial leaders in the community. And so in honor of them, and this came about in our public meetings that we had with the community, in honor of them, the ground floor is called Pico Roots, and it's curated. It's a space for a cafe and a market hub of homegrown small and micro businesses that support local creators. And our nonprofit clients spent a year doing this because it was really important to connect to the community. This is the other side of the building, which is more quiet. It's the residential entry. 4-story building with a courtyard, planting on all levels. And this building is a letter O. This is an image of the left side of the bridge that spans the courtyard. It's a family apartment, so we have a play area for kids and full of gardens and bioswales. In Santa Monica, you have to mitigate 100% of your stormwater on site. So this has a hanging garden and
It's good enough. Oh, thanks.
It's an all-electric building, net zero building. LEED, platinum, or gold. I don't remember which one, but this is pretty standard for us. All our buildings meet that kind of performance. We don't make a big deal about it. We just do it, and it, doesn't really become a conversation. We kind of think the sustainability of things should just be like code. You should just do it. And it's not, nobody ever says, isn't my building great? It's handicapped accessible. It's just, we should just be doing it. It's a question of ethics. We're working on this project in Redlands. It's a little bit different scale. This is 88 units. It's still pretty dense. It's right downtown. And it's for a couple. You probably know Conception Point, right? The whole debacle with that. Well, the people who bought that and donated it to the state are our clients, and they're now doing a lot of work in Redwoods to revitalize the city. But it really revolves around these kind of courtyards. This gives you kind of an idea in the spaces. It's 3 stories, mostly 4 stories. It looks kind of complicated, but the way that we did everything is the cores all stacked and the bathrooms, kitchens all stacked. So it's super, super efficient. And then just the edges move. So they kind of just stretch in and out a little bit, but the cores and all the shear walls, everything go straight up. It's really a kind of simple lots. So just want to show you what some of those spaces are going to look like here. So these are a variety of those kind of courtyards. You know, you could do a lot with actually a little base around the kind of courtyard. Like, we never thought about it, but, you know, we just get it subconsciously making courtyard buildings. But, you know, it's like you said, it's been around for over 2,000 years. Why do anything different? It's a lot of variation that you can do that are really rad and nice. That's the residential entry, which is also the fire exits. So we turn that into a public sale, so it doesn't just look like a fire lane. This is the other side of the street where it has some retail and ground floor retail on, and that's the corner basically. It's right downtown Redlands. We won this competition in Chicago. This is on about 250 units of mixed use and affordable housing, 3-phase. This one we're out ready to start construction right at the transit corridor. But same thing, just trying to basically, you know, articulate the building in a way where they don't just look like big boxes. It has, you know, has some restaurants and such on the ground floor, courtyards above. This is another little infill building, and this is a strategy that you do a lot. We, you know, those of you who are architects know you always have budgets, and I hate the term value engineering because there's really no value in it, but we hear it too, you know, so we always are thinking about how to get the most bang for your buck. This is in an urban environment with great views, but also, you know, like people can see in to your building. So, you know, what was our solution? We worked with a company to design a shutter, C.R. Lawrence, and we then just made one shutter. We put them on the entire building. So what happens is you get a building that finally gets redesigned almost every day. So when we did this, you know, our developers said to us, they said, wow, that's, you know, it's still kind of expensive, that facade. You know, how about, can we just see what it looks like to take it off? You know, most architects would be horrified by it. So I was like, sure, we'll take it off and you can have a look. And, you know, he looked at it and bit his tongue. He's like, this is really ugly, but we're going to save a lot of money. So we said, okay, that's fine. So I sent it to our structural, our MEP, and our, you know, engineers go, oh, you're going to take that screen off? We're going to get a lot more heat gain. We're going to have to like make the, you know, AC a lot more. And, you know, then our engineer structural goes, oh, you're going to put bigger equipment up there? We're going to have much more robust structure. At the end of the day, it costs like 40 grand extra. You know, the developer thinks we're a genius, you know? And so like we always try to do things which are performative as well as aesthetic. And I think if you do that, you always kind of win. And, you know, what we always try to do is natural light cross ventilation. Like, anyone out there ate natural light? Raise your. Hey, anyone ate fresh air? I mean, it's a simple things you can do that don't cost money, and you get these great
kind of spaces. We had a little fun too. In the kitchens, the backsplashes, we got some old recycled skateboards and we cut them up and we made Kyles out of them. The backsplashes in the kitchen.
So in Los Angeles, there are about 70,000 unhoused people. And in 2018, LA County said, we want to have people figure out how to solve this problem. And they called for proposals. It was really a developer-led thing, but we designed a proposal and teamed up with a developer and a prefab company to do the Nest Toolkit. We won $1 million. And then the Nest Toolkit is to tailor the prefab home building industry to affordable housing and to provide parcels that are the same size to do different things. We researched the city of LA, and almost every lot in the city of LA stems from the same size, 50 by 150, and different combinations of that. So each module is sized to be able to be put on any lot in any city for any setback. And it's meant to be a long-term solution that's replicable throughout the county. The modules had social spaces like common bathrooms, kitchens. It's temporary housing or permanent housing. The toolkit, each module is colored a different color. They could be put on any size lot. We have a lot of diagrams of how they could potentially be laid out. We did several designs for various neighborhoods for infill housing, and it's really meant to fill that mid-range density throughout LA. They're designed to be either skinned in the factory or skinned on site. And the Nest Toolkit's being developed by Plant Prefab. It's going to be on their website. And after 6 years, our first demonstration project is now under construction in Santa Monica. This is in Culver City, where we're using the Nest Toolkit to provide housing at a building that is on top of a restaurant that can't close next to a historic theater. This is the site for our demonstration project. It's a parking lot that's 42 feet wide, right next to power lines, which some developers would say you can't build on. And it's called Berkeley Station. It's 4 stories. It's 100% electric with solar. Community college, you want to say this, Tom? Community college students make up a large percentage of our homeless population. And the Mount Olive Church in Santa Monica was actually housing students temporarily in a building on their property.
Angie makes a lot of notes and she gets very detailed. She was typing away last night and I was looking at it and said, you can't say all of what I'm with that. Well, this is my notes while she's getting comfortable.
We're almost done, Larry. We're close. We're close.
Anyways, this, the homelessness we're finding extending to even college students, right? So at SMC, Santa Monica College, there are kids living in their cars around the college. This church, Mount Olive, has been housing some of those students living in their cars. And, so we went to the church with Community Corp and said, hey, how about we help you house some more students? And they were like, well, we don't have any more room. We can't house them. And I said, well, you got that giant parking lot right behind you there. They're like, well, we need the parking for, our church. And besides, it's just zoned for a single family house. I said, well, how about if we keep all parking, but we give you a lot more units? So we designed for them a 50-bedroom house, and you're allowed to do the accessory unit. So we have a 2-bedroom ADU with it.
2 kitchens. 2 kitchens.
It's up here, right? So the city of Santa Monica hates us for
By right. Call it.
Yeah, because we always find ways around. And the pastor loves it. He calls it his little mini church, you know, but again, we have to be creative about the solutions, and every solution isn't for the championship of the free world. You know, you try things and some work, some don't. And I think too often we think of everything that we do as like fatalist view if it's not successful. And I think it's okay sometimes to fail. I think it's not okay to not try to do better. So we're always looking for ideas. So we came up with this idea to do an art show around affordable housing. So we went to a gallery in Santa Monica 18th Street Art Center, and we proposed this idea to do a art show and about like housing. And at first they were like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Well, we convinced them to do it. So we basically made it like an art show. So this is what it looked like. We did this 25-foot long, basically painting, but it's chock full of information about density, about housing. The models show all those things. So you could go, when the people like go up and look at it, they're actually learning about issues regarding housing. And I think in density, and it's just like changing the conversation. So it was so popular. It was like their most visited show that they ever had. The attendance was crazy. They put us on TV. There's Angie for Bob.
I spoke in front of the housing and planning element task force to talk about density.
And the coverage we got was astounding. You know, it was featured in the LA Times. If you know anything about the art world, hyperallergic is like the holy grail of the art world. It was a must-see show, you know, and it's, to me, very interesting, this idea that's like how you change the narrative, because people are afraid of affordable housing. They think it brings negative things, and it really brings positive things to the community. And I think we have to kind of change the narrative and kind of discuss in ways where we benefit and be kind of less afraid of it. And so that's kind of what we try to do. We're going to close here with just a short video about affordable housing.
We've become a culture that ignores people and looks the other way. Our homeless problem, especially in Los Angeles, is so large now that it's almost untenable.
Los Angeles has the highest number of unsheltered people anywhere in the country, and clearly you can see that in Skid Row.
There's a lot of suffering that goes on. If you're not ready to live in the streets, it gets pretty profound.
For those individuals who have been largely isolated and alone, beginning to try to build solutions to what this can look like.
I've known Mike for a long time, and this is really our first collaboration. The name of this project is The Six that we did for Mike, and that means that, in military terms, it means I've got your back. And really, Mike is the six for homeless people.
I think I was one of the first people who had keys, and I thought I was dreaming. And I came in and looked, it was empty. I was like, whose house is this? They said, yours. I got a radio, a microwave, a crock pot. What more can you ask for?
They have everything contained in their own unit, but then we have
my breath away. Because I've been suffering for a number of years. Suffering for years. And what are you going to expect, you know?
Breaking stereotypes of the homeless goes back to design. It says something. It says we care about you.
Design definitely can empower individual. If you ask Mike, he'll tell you that good design is part of the healing.
A little bit like Frank Sinatra, if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. No one has a bigger homeless crisis than we do here in Skid Row.
I think it's absolutely a replicable model. All you need is the will to do it.
These are our cities. Whatever we make here, whatever buildings we build here, they're part of the larger fabric that defines our cities.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. That was amazing. Appreciate all your time and thoughtful energy into that. My name is Andrew Goodwin. I'm an architect in town and also the owner of Mile Bookstore and Gallery. I wanted to give us like 5-10 minutes maybe. Thank you for going long. It's okay. But does anybody have any questions? I want to moderate a couple questions from the audience. Yeah, we go for it.
Hi, thank you so much, you guys. My name's Preston. I work in affordable housing and manufactured housing, which is one of the last subsidized forms about the affordable housing in our country. And I see these gorgeous projects, and all I see too are so many dollars a mix. And I'm wondering how many of these projects do you need grant money and subsidies for all of them, or do you think the numbers will work if you didn't top this?
I love when people ask that question. Okay, because good design doesn't cost more money. Okay, so if you're doing our threshold for what's acceptable is the absolute possible cheapest you can make it is wrong. Okay, you got to put something into it. Okay, otherwise the clothes you're wearing, like you're wearing a ripped t-shirt. That's cheaper. So you make value decisions and, part of it, it doesn't cost that much more. The bigger problem is in subsidized housing, it's costing probably 30% more than market rate housing. And that's a big problem. Okay, so part of what we did with the toolkit was to basically build a lot of it off-site so we were not subject to prevailing wage, other things that drive the cost up and regulation. So it's not the builders, it's not the designers, it's the regulation around it that's driving the cost through the roof. And so we have to do something about that. And there are many things. You guys want to stay the night here? I can't. I could keep going. But, just to give you an example, for example, ADA. Everyone who has a disability should have access to housing. Okay, but nationwide, if you took every disability, we're at maybe 30% of people that have some form of a disability. Yeah, we got to do 100% of our housing accessible. Okay, all that extra dollars that we spend on those units, we could build hundreds of thousands of your units, but nobody will touch that. It's the holy grail. Oh, you can't do that. So we have regulation upon regulation that's driving cost. And so we got to do something about that, and then it makes it easier to do better design. Great. Another question.
So even though it's a very short time from the tragedy was the Palisades in Los Angeles to the fires, people are starting to speculate about whether we yield that design. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
But we know people who have lost their houses there. And we also met with an elderly gentleman last week who lost his house. And a lot of the people have decided not to come back because, it's suburbia. And if you ask me, I think we should remodel all of Pasadena. And going back to the last person, we have to think about density, right? So manufactured housing is suburbia, and there are a lot of costs that are not in the manufactured house, for instance, that are societal costs for all of us, which have to do with pollution, infrastructure going to suburbs and everything else. So we need to build apartments. And I like to show Barcelona, against, for instance, the city of Atlanta. They're the same population, hugely different in energy use and livability and everything else. So we have to talk about density, and we also have to talk about living near places where, we're so spread out that we have to start living in denser areas and rewrite the parts of this country. I really believe that.
Yeah, we have a new book out called Salty Urbanism, and it deals with a different kind of disaster, in coastal flooding and sea level rise and those kind of things. And it's fires are just another different way. And what we like to say is you have to, adapt to the situation. Like you can't do it overnight. It's everything is timed with mortgage cycles. And so you have to first, there's a triage portion, then there's a way to kind of retreat a little bit and then adapt. And so it's a multi-generational thing. You don't do it overnight. And it's the same thing with all kinds of natural disasters and places we build. We need to look at a long-term view of that.
But I think people will be migrating before the policy changes. Bit of my.
It's good. All right, one more question. Just gonna get back.
See, I have a question about something that Ethan mentioned earlier. I think that we hear arguments sometimes that affordable housing or building housing in general, especially in a small town like San Luis Obispo that is already high cost of living area, will result in lots more people moving here, just raising the cost of living for everyone who's already here. And you mentioned earlier that you've seen this, that some of the projects that you worked on, even projects that were originally affordable, you mentioned that there may be some models that are working to combat that. I'm curious how you're combating gentrification as you build more affordable housing.
Yeah, so our project that we show that the cost went through the roof, we're pretty young. We had ideas. We thought we had a good solution. Turned out not to be, but knowing today there are things that really work well. For example, the model we think is a great model is land trusts. And that's where you could partner organizations partner with the home ownership. And so the organization owns the land, right? And the private people own the building. And so there's an arrangement of how you can sell, what kind of profit you can make. So there's you could structure it. Now, there are actually good models now for maintaining affordability. And so they're out there. They do work, and you can do more of them. But the bigger thing is communities and, SLO is going to see it. I mean, you guys have a lovely, lovely place, and, it's getting expensive. Right. But you got to have people who work in the restaurants. You got to have people who are firefighters. You got to have teachers. With none of those, your community gets worse. And so people can't afford to commute. They're far away, then they have to commute. They're not with their families. Their kids don't have parents. They get into crime and nefarious things, and the problems get worse. And so our best solution is to have our communities be diverse, no matter how we do it.
Yeah, and land trusts takes the land out of the equation. So there's no appreciation of the land, but there's appreciation of the building, which happens a little bit slower, and that's what maintains the affordability. And I'm working with the city of West Hollywood on some policy changes, and that's one of the things they're looking at to maintain affordability over the long term.
Great. Well, thank you both again. Thank you, Larry, for community.